Okay, it is 9:01, so we're going to get started here. My name is Melanie Crutchfield. This course is Beginning Python for Human People with Feelings. If you happen to be a cat, you're absolutely in the wrong room. We're all very I'm like, if I can get 2 smiles, I feel pretty awesome. So I'm doing really great so far. Yay for me. Yeah, so I have been working with Python and Django for a few years. I made an exciting little thing called 5up. Ooh, I left peaceful music on. I feel too peaceful. I'm going to turn it off. 5upapp.com, you can go to it. It's built with Python and Django. So that was kind of my first dip into programming with Python. Now I am a backend engineer at O'Reilly Media, and we do lots of fun things. If you want to talk to me about a Django app that will send you 5 happy texts every day, or about O'Reilly and their awesome things, or about Toast, if you want to talk to me at all, it's fine. Any of those things, you're welcome. It's fine. I don't like talking about street fighting because I don't know anything about it and it's kind of scary. So we covered that much. Good for us. So last night I sent out a message saying that we need Python 3.6 and above, and we need a code editor that we're comfortable with. And then I also will need you to be able to get to your terminal or command line. So those are the 3 things that we need to get started this morning. Trey Hunter is our TA this morning, and he just handed out some stickies. We have a green one for when we're thrilled about everything, or just for nothing. I don't know. I don't use the green one very often, but red is a really aggressive color, so we should balance it out somehow. Anyway, so there's the green one just for feelings, or maybe sometime I'll ask you to put that up for some reason. If you get stuck and you need help, you can put your red sticky up. And someone will pop around to help you, either myself or Trey, or potentially another TA. So there's that. Trying to think if I needed to mention anything else, and I don't think I do. One thing I want to check in on is where we're at in the room in terms of our experience with Python. So who has written 0 lines of Python in their lives? Yay. Sorry, I was too excited about that. Wonderful. I'm glad you're here to learn. Who's written like 50 lines or so? 50 lines of something like that? Okay. So we've got some people that have dabbled. Let's say 200 lines of Python code. Anyone? A few of you? Handful of you? Okay. Cool. So we've got a little bit of a range in the classroom. We're going to start from the very, very basics. So some of you that have been playing around in Python for a while will have a good opportunity to relax and reflect upon your life and use the keyboard as a meditative experience. And then others of you that are brand new to Python, it's very exciting. It's possible that you'll get a little tripped up at some point. That's awesome. That's what learning's about. So again, your red sticky is your friend, and then we'll just communicate the whole time. If we are getting, overwhelmed, then we can talk about that and we can move on. The point here, though, is to be very flexible and open and fun and have a good time. Oh, there's a sheet of things I'm supposed to say, and it's underneath my computer. Oh, and that just did something. Everything's fine. Oh, I tilted it. Okay. Housekeeping notes. There's a tutorial link. I'll send it out through the platform later, because I don't think you want me to read this whole URL. That's kind of funny. The following AM break will be at 10:15 in the lobby. Snacks and stuff go really quickly, so I'm going to try to, if I'm not paying attention and 10:15 comes, then just raise your hands up and leave. And then that way you can feed yourselves. That'll be good. Lunch is at 12:20 to 1:20. And then there's a section for people with dietary needs. That's clearly marked, so that's good. The last one says, we have placed as much power as we can afford, so please share the outlets. So that's good. Does everyone have power and everything else that they need? You have internet access? Everyone's happy? Okay, good. All right, I think that's all of the little itty bitties that we need to get done today. So with that, you see superpython.party. Does everyone pull that up? Have we got there? Okay, you can go ahead and go to that. Superpython.party, that is the full website. And that's what we're going to be going through today. Don't feel like you need to click along with every page because we're going to be looking at the screen here and doing some stuff in the terminal, but that's kind of our roadmap for what we're going to be doing today. So, and you'll notice that the name of this tutorial is not like Intro to Python or like smart things you can do with Python. It's Beginning Python for Human People with Feelings. I gave this last year. It is a very fun tutorial, I think. When I describe to people what it is that I'm doing with it, I always say it's like part Python and then part like hippie nonsense, except for it's not nonsense. We're going to use some information that's scientifically backed on how we can increase our happiness. So we're going to move through Python, learning about Python, while also engaging with some of these whole self practices. And the reason is that if we are happier, like the happier our little hearts and brains are, we have cool chemistry that happens in our heads, we can learn better, right? We're more relaxed, we're more creative. Like we get to engage in a life that is much fuller and more exciting. And on your professional level also, you'll be able to advance further. Like a relaxed, chill brain is much better at life in general. So we're going to learn some things about how to care for ourselves because I just like the idea of using learning as an opportunity to grow in all ways. So that's what we're going to do today. It's a little bit fruity, but like I said, it's scientifically backed. So if you're like anti-fruity weirdness, then just like put a little science coat on that nerd in your head, and then like we'll be off to the races. So if you go to this website, superpythonparty.com, superpython.party, we do have a little bit of files that I want you to download. So if we go right in the what are we doing here, is everyone there? There's a little paragraph that kind of talks about what I just said, and at the bottom it says download some files. And then there's a link that says exercises. Does everyone get that? Okay. If you're using Chrome, it might yell at you and say that this is going to destroy your entire machine. I promise it won't. It just doesn't like letting anyone download PY files. So you can go ahead and download those. If you have trouble unzipping them or knowing what to do with them, put up a red sticky. Okay. It says, and then right at the end of that page, it says, yes. Good. Okay. Okay, so once you download those files, we're going to move on. The first thing that we're going to look at is called the REPL. And what it is the Python REPL, what it does is it reads, it executes the code that you give it, it prints the result of the code, and then it loops, meaning that it starts over and is ready to go again. So that's what it stands for, read, execute, print, loop. There's no reason to remember that if you're new to Python. Like that will never be information that you find handy. Like I know exactly what the REPL stands for. You can call it reptile eats pizza loop, and that is fine. Like it doesn't matter. But now you know what it does. And we can get into the REPL. This is with our command line or terminal. Who needs help pulling up their command line or terminal? Can you please put up a red sticky? Okay, yeah, put up your sticky and Trey will come around and help you grab that. So we're going to open the terminal, and then to get into the Python REPL, where we can type Python code and have it kind of give us a return back so that we can see what we're doing, we type Python. And I'm going to have you type Python 3, okay? If you type just straight up Python, what it'll do is it'll grab whatever your system default is. So if you happen to have like Python 2 installed, it'll just grab that, and like if that's the default. Python 3 specifies we want Python 3, not Python 2. Python 3 and Python 2 are a little bit different, and so there are some things that, like, if we try to type them in Python 3, it'll do fine, and then Python 2 will kind of puke at you. So if that happens, then put up a sticky, and we'll see what's going on. Okay, so Python 3 is what we type, and that's for like a Mac. If you're on Windows, it's py-3. Okay, so feel free to open up your terminal and type along, because that is fun. You'll see we can know that we're in the terminal, or in the REPL rather, by these 3 little arrows that we see at the beginning. And you can kind of think of it as a little hungry reptile. And that's, remember how we said the thing? Yep, we're together now, it's working. Okay, so now we know that we're in the REPL, and this means that I can start typing Python code here, and then Python will do its thing. So to get out of the REPL, we can do, let's see, on a Mac, I always forget these, Control Z, there we go, Control Z. Oh no, hold on. No, I think I'm good. There we go. I always forget the quick keys though, so if you type exit and then open and close bracket, it'll take you out too. And you can tell the difference. We don't have our reptile here anymore, and we have this. So, and when you see the that little $sign, or on Windows machines, what is it, like a hash? I forget what the command line. Who's on Windows machine that can tell me? cprompt, there we go. So now we know, and this is things that, like, we can do CD, and this will change us. We can go around in our directories, right? We can, which is, if you've never used, who hasn't used the terminal to, like, move around in on your computer between folders? Is that new to anyone? Who's it new to? All of y'all have been cruising around your computers? Nice. Okay, cool, that's good to know. Great. So we're gonna get back in the REPL. Python 3. And now when we're in the REPL, we can start typing Python code. So the first thing that we're gonna look at is just strings, okay? And a string, it allows us to just store text. So, and that text can be any character. And the only thing that we need to do for a string, it's very simple. So if we type in, this is just text, right? If we type it in like this, it's going to give us an error. And it says that Melanie is not defined, which is upsetting for me because I exist and I'm here. And yet Python is telling me otherwise. And the reason it gives us this is because we need to contain the string in something. And we use quotes for that. We can use single quotes or double quotes. And that's as in I'm not hyperventilating. I'm not trying to comment on myself here. Everything's fine. Don't worry. Oh God, what happened? Does anyone see what may have happened here? Do we have a guess? The quotes are different. The quotes aren't matching. So we can use single quotes. We can use double quotes. We can't use a double quote at the beginning, single quote at the end. Okay, so how do we deal with, like if we want to say, how do we do this? Escape it somehow, okay. And you say that by like putting whack. I like this. These are words that I would say, absolutely. You do the thing to the what have you. Any other ideas? Double quotes around the entire thing. Okay, let's see. There we go. Okay, so this is our very first thing that we're doing with Python, right? We're doing a string. We can store some stuff in there. That's how it works. So what I want you to do, really quick here, let's look at a couple other things. Okay, we can do what's called concatenation with strings in Python. Pickles are fine. We don't need to freak out about pickles. So we can take one string and we can add another string to it, okay? So by using this the plus operator. But now look what it's given us. And the reason it smashes it all together there is that you can see there's no space either at the end of pickles are or at the beginning of fine. So, and it's just going to take exactly what we give it and give it back to us. So to fix that, we can put a space there, and then it'll print out just fine. Okay, so it's strings. Python can also deal with integers, so just numbers. And what do you think will happen? Here. Raise your hand if you think this is going to be just fine. Carol thinks it's going to be just fine. Hello to Carol Willing, who just walked in the door. I meant the code, actually, Carol. Who thinks you're, raise your hand if you think this is going to print us 3 as a magic number. No one. Yes, 1. 1. No, we got a no, we got a yes. We got 2 yeses. Hold tight. Hang on to it. You be the one. Who thinks that it's going to barf at us a little bit? We got lots of barfs. Okay, we'll see. I'm in it with you, though. I believe in you. Ready? It barfed. I'm sorry. The reason why is because Python can add together strings. Whee! Python can add together integers. Yay! But if they're different things, string, integer, it can't like do the math, right? Can't shove them together. Can't add the number 3 to the number is a magic number because it's not a number, right? So there we go. Yes. Yeah. We can find out types. This little thing here, and this is the first time that I've showed like any kind of function, right? So this open, except for the exit that I did, this open close, this is a function. So when we type here and give it a 3, Python knows in the background it's going to do some stuff. So it was defined somewhere. When someone types type and gives me something to do with it, then I know what I'm going to do. And what it's going to do is it's going to tell us what it is. So this is an integer. Things. And this is a string. Okay. So, time to play. We're going to do this every now and again, just break out and try stuff out. If you've been putting your fingers on the terminal already, that's wonderful, and I'm going to ask you to continue to do that. What I want you to do, though, type out some strings, type out some integers, try to, mess around. But I also want you to type in there something nice about yourself. It can be anything. You can type like just strings of farts if you want, that's fine. But you have to also type something that makes you feel good about yourself. Something that you like, something that your mom always said, that you are very cute even though you're messy. Something like that. Okay, so I'm going to give you a couple of minutes just to play around, and then we'll move on. Let's see. So don't forget that you have stickies for a reason. Anytime that you feel stuck or you have a question, there's anything that you want help with at all, put up that red sticky. And the reason for that is that if you're typing, you can't hold one hand up, or maybe you can and you're talented. But also, you don't have to hold your hand up the whole time. If your sticky's up, then we're constantly scanning the room. We have Chris back here, and then Trey here, and then myself, and we have a red sticky. Okay. How'd we do? Put up a green sticky if you're just absolutely in love with typing strings and such. Anyone? Yeah.
So I'm messing around in 2.7 right now,
Mm.
but I'm nearly positive I have.
Here we go. Oh, look at all those green stickies. That's exciting. Okay. So we're going to go on and do a little bit more arithmetic. Like we saw, we can do like basic addition. And then we can also do things like this using a floating point number, right? Which is like programmer speak for decimals. So we can use decimals in here. We can subtract. We can multiply with the asterisk there. We can do division. Who thinks this is going to give us the number 2? Just straight 2. Raise your hand. Who thinks we're going to get 2.0? Yeah? What do you think, friend? Blue sweatshirt friend. What's your name? I'm so hurt in my heart. We're gonna have to revisit that. He knows the answer. So if we give Python just 2 integers to divide, it gives us back a floating point. And we can do this. That's fine. If we want it to round down, we can use a double slash. And we get an integer back. We can also raise to the power of things like this. Okay, so is everyone following along on the website? Yes, no, maybe, a little bit? Okay, so we have another exercise, tiny exercise break. I'm just going to give you like 2 minutes or so to play around with math. So there's a couple of little things with like rounding. I want you to play around with stuff like that. I'm not going to put enter. And then there's some other fun little symbols there that I want you to try out. So just see what you can do with math. Try different things. And then we'll pop back in a second and move on. Okay. Who found something interesting? Anyone? Yes. Oh, yeah. Okay, so this is fun. I'm gonna try to remember. Okay, round 1.5. We got 2, right? Round 2.5. What are we gonna get? 2. Because numbers don't matter and everything's meaningless. Maybe. If you're raised in the U.S. and the U.S. school system, we learn that rounding, right? If it's like, what do we do? 1.5 and up it goes to 2, right? 1.4 goes down. So 2.5 should go to 3, right? Other educational systems actually do rounding a different way. It's more similar to like accounting rounding, where they do this kind of odd thing. So I think, if I remember correctly, that are, got a little bit of frog, that are odd numbers. Trey, you can tell me if I'm right on this, that an even number, or even numbers are going to round down, odd numbers go up. Yep. Weird. Yeah, exactly. I think, again, I think in terms of like accounting and statistics and stuff, it ends up being more accurate. I think that's the reasoning there, but it is very fun. So now you know, and you do need to be mindful of it, right? Because if you're using it for some kind of calculation, or using like a conditional that, like, when it gets to this point, it should do this behavior. If you don't know what round does, then you can get some unexpected results. Anyone else find something interesting? Yes. The carrot. The carrot.
Not sure what it's doing. Sometimes
What did you do? 3 caret what?
all kinds of
Or all kinds of the numbers. 3 caret 1. Numbers are meaningless. It just prints whatever it wants. Trey, would you like to explain what the caret does? Exclusive order. Okay, so this is outside of the scope of this class. if you would like to talk to Trey later about bitwise yep, no is the correct answer there, actually. So we're going to move on. I love that two people like just kind of randomly discovered that. Do you come from another language? Like another programming language? Have you explored? No, you were just like, I'm going to use this one and see what happens. Oh, okay, there we go. Okay. All right. We are going to move on to what I've put throughout the class called Happy Work. And if you're looking on the website, there's an emoji there, and it's exciting. So there's a researcher, like I said, this is scientifically backed. His name's Sean Aker. He's on Oprah now, which makes me sound like an Oprah nerd, which is fine, like whatever, I own it. But he has a really, really great TED Talk, and he does a lot of research around the science of happiness and how we can increase our happiness, and then what happens to us as we increase our happiness. So his research says that when we're happier, we work smarter. And so I want to try to reinforce these things. And so we're going to go through the things that he recommends. You can go watch his TED Talk if you haven't already and take notes and start to implement these things into your life. But even if you only implement them in like the 3 hours that we have together, I will be very, very excited for you. Happiness is awesome. And I really do believe that we all deserve to have this anchor of happiness and joy and security. So the first thing that we're going to do is work on some gratitudes. And I have a section in here about why it works, but it changes your brain when you start looking for things that you're grateful for. So because our brains are really wired to make sure that we don't die by eaten by a dinosaur or something. And so our brains are really great at scanning the room and going like, that looks scary and that looks dangerous. Unfortunately, taxes are also dangerous somehow in the same way that a dinosaur might have been, right? Or like spilling coffee or these types of things. Our brains are really great at finding things that bum us out. So we have to actually train them to look for things that make us happy. And as we look for things that are happy, it becomes easier to find things that are happy. And so it kind of reinforces this loop and gets us moving in a nice direction. So what we're going to do, similar to what we did before when we were typing at the REPL, I want you to open up your REPL again. And if you've gotten out of it, you'll have to, Python 3, get back in there, right? And I want you to write out 3 gratitudes, just anything in a string, as a string. You can put numbers in there. I'm 100 times grateful, but you'll have to figure out how to do that. Okay, so just a couple of minutes, 3 gratitudes. It'll feel good. I'm going to do it too. Okay. We're going to start moving on, maybe a little faster. We'll see. What we're going to talk about now is variables. Is everyone ready to move on? Yes? Okay, good. Variables. So Python, like many other programming languages, has variables. And we set a variable by saying x equals 4. Now x equals 4, and if it just gives us right back. We can also multiply with our variables, and we'll get 12, right? And we can put anything in a variable. Like, I can say it equals dog, and now x is dog. Anything that we want to put in the variable, we can put in the variable. And we can pass these things around like any other value, right? Is anyone else super into hedgehogs? Someone is. Don't leave me hanging, y'all. So, what do we have in cuties? This is what everyone does in programming. What do we have? 4. Yep. Okay. We're going to move on to this thing that I know some of you have been like accidentally popped into 2.7. This is one of those things that is different between Python 2.7 and Python, even like Python 3.6, 3.5, I think. I think it was at 3.6 where this thing called an F string was introduced, which is very cool. So we have this. So we have a variable, conference. Does everyone remember what the type is of this year variable? What did I give it? A string, okay. So now I can do this little fancy thing. No. Does everyone see what I did wrong? Mix my quotes. So this is just like what we were doing earlier with concatenation, where we give it a string, and we use the plus operator, and then it kind of smashes them together. But the nice thing about here is what it's doing, as you see, we have this variable here. Oh, it's not going to be nice to me. Conference, which we set above. So, and this F, I believe it stands for format string, but we can just say it's a fantastic string because this is a super handy little thing that you can do, that we can say F and then we can throw in these things that we've defined above. So here, when we put it in the curly brackets, it's going to fill in what we had set for conference, and then it prints the space that we put in here. And then we've got another space here. And so it's concatenating these things, but we have this nice little kind of sugary syntax that we can use that makes it both clear what we're doing, right? The conference goes here, the year goes here. But we don't have to do all of these like plus this, plus that. There is, if you happen to be in Python 2.7, there is another way to do this. It's just not quite as clear. To me, it's not as readable. But we can take that string and then we can kind of throw this method on the end of it, which is something that we haven't discussed, but it's a little bit of a different form of a function, right? So it does the same thing. If you happen to be stuck in an earlier version of Python and you need to do something like this, you can use format. But like I said, I don't find it as readable because you have to like go to the end of it and then like translate it back, right? So praise be to F strings because they're quite handy. Okay, so we've got some variables. We've got F strings. That's good. Does everyone recognize that as like the horror movie one? You know, I feel like anytime someone's going to get killed in a parking lot in a horror movie, like that's always their ringtone. Anyway. Okay, so we're going to go into some more play. If you're following along, this section called First Concepts. So we're going to keep playing in the REPL. And there's 3 different exercises there that I want you to try to play with. The first one, I want you to make a variable called name that has your name in it, and see if you can figure out how to make it all uppercase or all lowercase. Okay, and I've got a link in there to the Python documentation on strings. The Python documentation is super handy. It's really thorough. Sometimes it can be a little bit difficult to read through, and you know, Google's always your friend there. But the Python documentation is great. So you should always kind of pop in there and try to see if you can figure out some cool stuff to do. So I want you to look at the documentation on strings and play around with that in your REPL. And then there's some multiplication and division powers that I want you to play around with, and then also multi-line strings. So strings that span over just one line, okay? So I want you to do those 3 things. I'm gonna give you just a couple of minutes. Do not forget that you have a very powerful red sticky that if you put it up, someone will appear to help you. So questions, comments, you get stuck, anything, please use your red sticky. It is very powerful. Okay, we'll look at a couple of things here with our strings, things that we can do. Who found how we can make this all lowercase? Y'all found, some of y'all found it? Okay. So we use lower. So there's all of these methods, right, that we can apply to any kind of string. And I can even do this, I don't have to have it in a variable, like we were looking at before, right? And so we can, there's a few different options here that we have. I don't know if, did anyone play out with like find in there? The find method? No? So this was all in the documentation. So it's just kind of fun, like things we can do with strings. I think this is what I want to do. So this is kind of an interesting thing, and we haven't really talked about indexing so much. But what I asked, essentially, is find the letter I in Melanie, and then it was like, here it is. And our counting starts at 0. So this is, that's where we can find it in the string. That's kind of an interesting thing you can do. With, in terms of like using lower or using upper, these things are nice. If you're, say you have a form that someone fills out and you want to use their name and use it elsewhere, and everywhere else in your code you need it to all be the same like type of case, right? Or it's not going to match. Like if my name starts, you know, we're looking at my account and I do all caps, but my account is actually, you know, title case, my first letter capitalized and the rest lower. Python won't see those as being equal. So what you can do is, you know, use something like lower to normalize it. So once you give it to me, I'm going to lower it, and it's, you know, it's going to be able to match up. Yes.
How is a method different from a function?
Ah, this is a good question. It's I feel like it might be a little bit heady for, you know, some of our newer people, but basically like a string is a class. Like it's a class that's defined by Python. So a method is a function on that class. So it's a function that's defined on the class. So now I can take this find function, essentially, and I can use that to do stuff to strings. So all of the string methods are things that I can do to strings specifically. So a function lives outside of a class. That's the basic difference. If you want to talk about it more, we can later. Okay. So it's a good idea later to go back and play with some of these methods that you can use on strings. Like I want to look at all of them and play, but it's okay. We won't. But I want you to do it later, okay? The thing that I want to move on to now, and I was going to do a meditation right now, but I just want to talk about it instead. We have other times. Who like got a little bit sweaty when I said meditation? Anyone? Like I'm sure there was someone that was like, gross, why? You know, like, but you just didn't say it out loud. So I just wanted to talk about mindfulness meditation because we are going to do it later, so you can start preparing yourself now. But the reason mindfulness meditation is so powerful is because, like I said earlier when we were talking about gratitude, right? Our brains like to go like, oh, that's scary. Like, I spilled my coffee. I'm probably going to die now, you know, like, and we have this internal response in our bodies to these scary things that even if they're not terribly threatening. And what that does is it engages our sympathetic nervous system, which is your like freak out, right? The fight, flight, freeze. And so then we end up in this state of chronic like freak out stage. Chronic, like I need to fight the other cars in traffic, right? Chronic, like I need to, you know, flee from my job because it's scary, or whatever your thing is, right? And so we end up being in this space all the time. And that like does weird stuff to our bodies. Like this is a function that was supposed to save us from a saber-toothed tiger or whatever, but it ends up just being kind of an always thing. And the reason, so this is the thing, right? So we're stressed all the time. Low level, high level, like we just have this kind of gross thing happening in our bodies. And what mindfulness meditation is, it's not like a spiritual thing. If spirituality is not your thing, like you don't need to be afraid of it in that way. What it does is it allows us to kick into our parasympathetic nervous system. And this is your rest system. It's like what kicks in when you sleep. Rest, relax, remove some of those stress chemicals, right? And the interesting thing about it is that you can't actually have both engaged at the same time. So your freak out system can't be engaged at the same time as your restful system is engaged. Your parasympathetic and your sympathetic nervous systems can't work at the same time. So mindfulness meditation allows us to turn on our parasympathetic nervous system, our like, let's chill out nervous system, right? And therefore also turns off your flight, fight, or freeze system. And the great thing about meditation also is that, like, you don't need to be an expert or something. Like, you don't, there's, like, it doesn't matter. What you need to do, like, what helps get that parasympathetic nervous system going is deep breathing in your belly, not in your chest, but with your belly, so that your belly is expanding and contracting. And the reason it does that is that you have a nerve in your belly called your vagus nerve, and your vagus nerve is like a little magic button that if you can stimulate it with your deep breathing, then it's gonna turn on your parasympathetic nervous system. And as we do all of this, our bodies are gonna chill, we're gonna work smarter, we're gonna be more creative, it's gonna boost our happiness, right? Stress and chronic stress is very bad for us overall, and also just straight up a bummer. Like, it's just a bummer to live like that. So if we can engage in these things, we train our brains. Again, we train our brains to look for gratitude, and then we feel more grateful and happy. We train our bodies to get into this parasympathetic mode, right? And then it gets better at it. So this is something that we're gonna do. You can see in the curriculum that there's a bunch of links at the bottom too that you can move into. I have meditation and emotional reactivity, cool things that meditation does for you, meditation and the amygdala, and your vagus nerve. So that's all listed out. I would love for you to become like meditation nerds and like get super into it later. But I'm gonna skip the breathing for now. Prepare yourself, we will do it later. It'll be awesome, or you'll hate it, and you'll never have to do it again if you don't want. Okay, but for now, I'm gonna move on to scripts. Okay, did we download files? Did everyone download files at the beginning? Okay. Who has not downloaded files and needs help with that? Please put up a red sticky. True story, I did not download the files, so I'm gonna do that right quick. Yes. It didn't unzip. Okay, put up a sticky and okay, now that I've downloaded my files, we're going to be looking at command line. We've got it's 10:03, so in 10 minutes, I'm going to call it good so that y'all can go out there and snake all the snacks from everyone else. So just kidding. Take the appropriate amount of snacks and share with your friends. So we're just going to look at this for 10 minutes. We're going to start getting into command line scripts. Okay, and command line scripts differ from what we've been doing, because we've been in the Python REPL, right? It's gonna read, execute, print, loop. It's gonna reptile eats pizza loop. And that we're a little bit limited in the REPL, right? Because we type a thing, it gives it right back. And we're not doing anything elaborate. We don't have any, several steps really going on, just in and out, in and out. So using command line scripts, we can create a Python file and then run the file. And so we have an opportunity to be a lot more creative, right? We can add a lot more code in there and do more stuff. So what we're going to do is get out of the REPL. And we do that with exit, open, close, or if you remember the quick key, good for you. And then what you're going to need to do, because when we run our files, you need to be, either when you run the file, you can type in the full path, or we can CD to where we've put those files. Okay, so you'll see that I threw a lot of files in here for you, and these are the ones that we're going to be running. Okay, so there's a file in here called birds. Oh, you went right over there. That's exciting. Yay. So what do we have in this file? String, right. Okay, so when I come over here, you see that we have our birds file there. We're going to run a command line script by telling Python, say here he is, hey Python, we want to run this, birds.py. A little hint for those of you who don't play in the command line very often, if you hit tab, if there's like a file that is in the directory, then if you hit tab, it'll fill it in for you. So you can save yourself a couple of keystrokes here and there. So if I do this, it's going to run that file, right? Who thinks we're going to see that printed out? We're going to see it on our screen. Raise your hand. We've got a no. Any yeses? No. No one thinks so. You're all right. Well done. What do we need to do here? Like, why is that happening? We didn't tell it to print. We didn't tell it to do anything. So, but in the REPL, when I give it the string, it's going to give it right back to me, right? It prints it out. But if we're putting it in a program, if we're putting it in a script that we're going to run as a command line script, Python needs us to say, here's what we want you to do with this. So we do that with a function. So function separate than a method. This is something that we can do all by itself. This print function, it's just part of Python. So we don't need to know what the code is doing. This is just something that we get to do because fancy Python people made it happen. So we can change this file. And with the rest of our functions, right, we give it the name of the function, open, and then we give it the information that we want to feed into that function, and then we close it with a parentheses on the other side. Always has to be open, close. Okay, so I'm going to make that change. I'm going to save the file, and then when I come back, another little command line tip, if you press arrow, it'll do the thing that you just did. It's very handy. If we run the program again, now it prints this out. Is that making sense? Is anyone kind of freaked out by that? Have a question? No? Easy peasy. Okay. So, and in Windows, it's py space -3 and then the name of the program. So that's our first like teeny tiny little program. this is hard to see now that there were 2 lines, right? So we have this first string here, and then we have another one. So this is kind of an interesting thing that we can look at really quickly. I'm not sure how I feel about it. True story. Let me copy that out. So we have that. And we have this. 2 strings side by side, nothing between them. And now it's giving it back to us as 1 string, right? And this is the same as this. This is the same behavior. So Python does this implicit concatenation that if you shove them next to each other, it's like, cool, now they're concatenated. It's kind of interesting. I've come across a couple of circumstances where it's quite inconvenient and unexpected. But that's what happened in this case. You're absolutely right. We gave it 2 strings, it concatenated them. Okay. This is the last thing that we're going to do before we take a break. This is one more little happy work break. And one of the things that Sean Aker tells us that we can do to boost our happiness. Okay, and then when we get back from the break, we'll jump more into command line scripts and working on some other programs. So this one is random acts of kindness. This is another thing that makes us very, very happy. And it's interesting because there have been some research around, like, if I give you $10 and you go buy yourself a coffee because coffee prices are outrageous, like, you'll feel okay, right? But if I give you $10 and you give that $10 to someone else, or you buy them an outrageously priced coffee, like, you'll get much more happiness and joy out of doing that thing for someone else. It's kind of interesting, like it's an interesting little quirk of humans. So what I want you to do in the 2 minutes that we have before we should head out for snacks is send someone a text or a tweet, or an email or something. Anyone that means anything to you that you've enjoyed, like, just send them a note to tell them that they're awesome. Like, and this might be a stretch for you because it's not something that we're all like super used to, just telling people that they're great for no good reason. But tell someone that they're great for no good reason. And I promise it does like kind of magical stuff. So I know that it's weird. Do it anyway. If you don't like it, never do it again. Okay? And then when you're done with that, being a nice person by force from a stranger, you can go get yourself a snack. I think we're doing like a 10-15 minute break. Does that sound right to everyone? Back at 10:30? Yay, nay? Anyone? Yes. Okay, we're going to say 10:30. So the break was actually meant to be until 10:45. I found this out as I exited. You're welcome. So we can go ahead and wait until 10:45, but Trey and I are going to be hanging out, and Chris in here. So if you want to keep coding away, if you have any questions, put up your red sticky, or you can go take an extra lap around whatever you lapped, and we'll get back into the curriculum in 15 minutes. Okay. We are back. Okay, a couple things I wanted to just kind of revisit. We had our program here, birds.py, and remember the first time we tried to run it, we didn't have this print function. So if you run it without the print function, Python says, like, there's a string here, that's nice. Like, you didn't tell it to do anything with the string. It's just there. So this is something that you can do. You can fill your file up with all kinds of things, but if you don't give instructions on what to do with it, then Python will just kind of note that it's there, the end, right? Which is different than when we're in the REPL. Because in the REPL, it spits out what we give it, right? So it reads what we give, it executes what we give, and then it prints as part of its deal, right? The REPL. Or it pizzas if you decided to just go with that. But it's going to automatically do that step for us. When we're writing a command line script, when we're running a script, it will not do that automatic step. So as we put this print function, now we're telling Python, I'm going to run this, and here's what I want you to do. And that's when it's going to spit it out to us. So we have this difference between like the REPL, when we're in there, it decides to do some stuff for us. Outside of the REPL, it will not do that stuff for us. So it's important to keep in mind that when you see those alligators, you know, those, it's like, sorry, I teach like your children, you're not, but like, be a child, it's fine, you know, like everyone knows what those alligators are. So when you see that, you know that Python's going to do a little bit of extra work for you. If it's not there, then you have no alligators supporting you. You cannot take over the Amazon. They're gone. Who wants more explanation on that? Does that feel like it's sitting well with you? Yeah? Okay. Cool, cool, cool. Who did their Twitter exercise? Who didn't? You can be brave. It's okay. I encourage you to do that some point in the day. Twitter, email, sort of text. Okay. Okay. So we talked about scripts, command line scripts. And I'm in the REPL here, right? We see our alligators. I'm going to get out of there. And so now at this point, because I'm in my exercises folder, if I tell Python, if I say, hey, Python, here's a file, it's going to run that file. So, and I continually type Python 3 because that's what works in my operating system. So for those of you that are in like Windows, right, this is going to be py space -3 and then the name of the file, okay? So I'm not calling that out explicitly. I'm sorry, you need to do that translation in your head. But if it ever doesn't work and you're typing Python 3, I think what it gives back to you is like, I don't know what that is, like, but in, you know, normal talk. And so if it says like Python 3 isn't defined or like can't find that command, it says something like that, then use that as your cue to go like, oh, what is the thing that I need to tell it to do? I need py space -3. Okay. So we type birds, and it gives that back to us because we added the print function. Okay. So how comfortable are we feeling with this process of, oh, that's what I wanted to do. Okay. Sorry, I interrupted myself. This here, who did I confuse by just randomly opening up this file and it's got these numbers on the side? Yes? So sorry. So what this is, I just did it and they're like, figure it out. So what this is my code editor. I use Sublime Text. I like it. And so some of you might have Sublime Text. It's just for reference. I like it a lot. It's Nagware, so you can download it for free, but then it's going to like, every few saves, it's going to be like, are you sure you don't want to buy this? And then you have to be like, no, I don't. And then it's like a little bit pricey. Atom is free, and it's great. So your code editor might look a little bit different, but most likely you'll have these number lines on the side. So, and this is how we create our .py files, and then this is what we're running. So when you see this is my terminal command line. If you see me open this is a file, okay, that I'm editing, we're saving off, and we're running. Does that clear some stuff up? Yay, nay? Okay, good. So, I have, in the next section on the website, we have time to play with scripts. So there's a few exercises in here. Looks like just 2. So the first one, I want you to create, I think I actually have those. Let's see. So there's a file in there in the exercises that it's called Say My Name. And here it is. This at the top, this is a comment. It's going to do nothing. So, but I've put it there as a prompt. Especially if you're starting out in programming, comments are like, this is actually a docstring. So Python's going to try to interpret this. It won't try to interpret that. Right? So docstrings, they have these like triple quotes. You don't need to know this, but like in terms of the difference between a docstring and a comment. But it is good for you to know that if you throw something like this in here, or if you start a line with a hash, Python's just going to ignore it, right? So a lot of times there's something that we call like pseudocoding, where you have to say like, you kind of just write out what you want to do, like, I need a function that orders pizza for me. And then like, so first I have to decide what the pizza is, you know, or I decide toppings. Something like that. So I use this a lot to like kind of type through like, what do I need here? Yes. Oh, thank you. Is that what you were going to say also? You were going to say, why is this a I test all of a sudden? Okay. I'm going to try to fix that while you all go through the exercises. Shouldn't be too hard. So the 2 exercises, I want you to open up that Say My Name file, edit the file so that it will print your name, okay, and then run the file through the command line. And there's one more on there. Ooh. There's one more exercise in there for you to give a try, cheerleader.py. So open those up, try to do what I'm asking you to do, and then we'll pop back in a few minutes and maybe take a look at some strategies for that. Sound good? Yep. Do not forget that you have a magical red sticky that will save your life, or possibly just make someone come by to help you. Okay, who got through one of those exercises? Yeah? Good, wonderful. Okay. Who got through the second one, the cheerleader? Yeah? Were you able to get it to print multiple times? Yeah? Wonderful. We were just chatting. What's your name? Derek. I should have known that because I saw your output. Yeah, so Derek and I were just chatting about a couple of different ways that you can go about it. And so I'm curious, who used range for this? Yes, lots of you. Wonderful. Did anyone use another way? Yeah? Used a while loop. Okay. And then like after a certain amount of times you had it like and you had like while this and then added at the end. Okay. Is that like from Python experience or in another? In Java. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. Anyone else use the while loop? Yeah? Okay. Any other approaches? Yeah? What'd you got? Say it again? String dot join. Okay. Okay. To get it to repeat? Huh. That's very cool. Okay. Anyone else? Yeah. There. Yeah. Same? Okay. Yeah. That was when had a vague memory of actually having that in the curriculum, but apparently I didn't, which is exciting because. Okay. So, but I mean, 2 people out of a room of 50 did this one. So this is just an interesting thing we'll look at really quick. Wrong one. Okay. Now I'm going back in the REPL just because it's easy for this kind of one-off stuff. So, we have our string. These are the things I tell myself. Now you all know me like way too well, and it's going to be on the internet. This is so awkward. Why did I do this? Anyway, it's done now. So this is like, it does it once, right? What's going to happen now? Who thinks it's going to return a fish? Just a random thing. Who thinks it's going to print it once? 2 times? We've got print it 2 times. We think error. Okay. Who thinks error? Yeah? And I'm guessing the guess from error comes from what we did when we tried to add 2 in a string. Is this right? Yeah? Ah! Python has tricked us. So this is something that we can do with strings. We can have it go multiple times. And you'll notice again that like there was no space, so it just, goes like, it just butts it right up against the other one, right? So we can do this, and now it gives us a space. And I believe, new line? Nope, just kidding. There are things that I forget all the time. You can look that up later. Where's the closed bracket? Where are you thinking the closed bracket would? Closed bracket here? No. Oops. Which is this way? This is fun. There we go. Thank you. Okay. So we saw a couple of answers using this multiplication is a thing that we can do. We can use a while loop, which checks for a condition. So for those of you new to programming, this is something interesting, but we can basically set a variable and say, as long as this variable is under 10, keep printing this thing. And what you do to make that work so that it just doesn't go forever, is at the end of the variable, you increase it by 1. We say, times equals 0. And after we print it the first time, we say, now add 1, and now times equals 1. And it'll keep going through that. Range is almost like a little bit of a shorthand for that in Python. And this goes, I'm going to do another thing here that we haven't talked about. You can look up IPython later. We can say, this is something we're going to get to as well. So for each one of the items in this range thing, we want to print out high. And that'll work for us too. So that was one of the solutions, is this. For as many things are in range 10. Oh, that's not helpful. So it's basically from 0 to 10. It's going to print it out. So we have options. Sometimes I look at my curriculum and I'm like, well, that's a silly thing to have written. Like, it's not wrong, it's just ridiculous. Okay. Back in the REPL, right? So we're going to tell it a thing, it's going to give it right back. So we're going to look at some functions. So this is the print function that we've been using this whole time. We say, print this out, and then it does, right? And the REPL is a little bit different when we give it to it. When it prints it back, you'll see that it gives us like a string. It shows the string. Whereas if we say print hello, it just prints out hello. Okay? There's just a little bit of a difference there.
Is that why you get, when we do a script, just doing for I in whatever 25 times, we didn't have to do the line break? Is that just the difference between the two?
Yeah, so the question was, if we do for I in range, why do we not have to put a line break in? And it's because it prints it, done, right? So it prints it on one line, and then it's done with that bit. And then it comes back and again, now it's ready to print something else. And when it prints, it kind of, automatically puts in. Correct, yeah, because we're using the print function. So we have that. So another function that, and these are built into Python. Notice we didn't have to define anything for print. We told it to print and it did it. And that's because it's built into Python. It's already baked in. And there's a lot of stuff like this. Like all of our string methods that we were playing with earlier. That's already, it's under the hood in Python. It takes care of how that happens, which is quite handy. So these are all built-in functions that we're looking at. Print is built in. Does anyone have a guess on what this might do? Is it going to just print the name out again? No? It's going to give us 7. And why? Sorry? The letters. Okay. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yes.
But if you try name.len, it doesn't work. What's the difference there?
So it says here, this is a little bit of a hint for us. So string, it's a string object. It has no attribute len. So for those of you that are new to programming, just go ahead and black out and think about cats or something. And that's okay. And you can come back and watch the video and when you're ready to move on to this topic. So, but remember when we were talking about methods earlier, the difference between a function and yeah, that's okay. So This idea of a string is defined way back in Python, right? It's defined for us. And Python also defines stuff that we can do with it, right? One of the things we can do with it is make it all lowercase. One of the things we can do with it is make it all uppercase. One of the things we cannot do with it, because it's not defined, is find its length. So, and we have this len that we can pass in this variable, okay? And this will work on just a string also. And this is including, the length here is including that space in there, because it's a character. So, so that's one thing. This we looked at a little bit earlier. X equals 5. Does everyone remember what this does? Yeah? It gives us the type. So just giving us a little bit of information about what it is. This is a class. So when we have these things like a string or an integer, float, these are all different classes in Python. And it's helpful. Sometimes you'll try to do something, like when we tried to concatenate. When we tried to concatenate, it barfs on us, right? That's the technical word. It's in the Python documentation. Super isn't. I wish it was. Anyway, so it says, like, we can't do these types. Sometimes you'll get a different kind of error. And so if you check the type on a thing, or if you get unexpected behavior, you can check the type and go, oh, yeah, right. So this thing that I'm trying to do, it's not available for this type of object. It's not available on a string. It's not available. You can check the documentation for that. So, fancy thing. We can't concatenate these two things because there's an integer and there's a string. But what if we lived in a world where we could make the integer into a string? What if we could? Who thinks we can? Who thinks the world is magical and this is possible? Yay! You're all supposed to raise your hands because you're supposed to believe in magic, because we're all positive people now. We're looking for the gratitude of things being magic. It's okay. Here we go. So this here, stir, gives us back a string, right? It's interesting that the world gives us exactly 1,000 magical things. This is just truth that's happening right now. So this is an integer. And now it's a string. Something that you might notice here is that we have a nested function, a function inside a function. So what it's going to do first, it's going to take this inner function and execute it. So it's going to take that integer that we have in that variable, and it's going to make it into a string. And then after that, it's going to tell us the type. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay. No, you're good.
Is it just a matter of kind of, probably beyond this class, but kind of optimizing the script you write if you did string 3 plus as a magic number as opposed to quotes 3 and concatenating it? Is it just a matter of kind of writing good scripts at that point in time?
This,
functional reason to use one or the other?
Well, the functional reason in this case is to demonstrate a thing. So this is like, I'm trying to think, like there could be a circumstance in which, you know, you want to put a variable, right? 5 is the magic number, which is not what the song of my childhood taught me, but that's fine. And we can do, remember this situation? Uh-huh. Whoops-a-daisy. Sorry. So this seems like a more, like something that you might see in the real world, right? I don't know why you would try to do this, like adding a random integer to a string, doing it in this way, when Python allows you to just shove it in there. And you'll notice that our magic number variable is an integer. So, but when we shove it into the f string, it works out just fine. So it works out differently than the concatenation because it's not trying to add them together. It's just shoving it in there. So, and this might be a case where, you know, under certain conditions, you want the magic number to be something, right? If it's in my magical childhood, the magic number is 3. We all know this. But, you know, for someone else, the magic number might be 5, right? So if it's in my magical childhood, it's 3. If it's, you know, in Walmart, it's 5. I don't know why it's 5 there. So that's kind of, you know. Okay, another thing that we can do here. So this is an integer. We can turn it into a string, okay? So now we have a string in X, right? We can turn that string back into an integer. We can also then make that integer a float. What happens if we try this? Who thinks that we're going to get 7? Like maybe it's going to give us the length of the string. Anyone? Yes? No? Okay. Who thinks that it'll give us like 0? Maybe, or like a null? No? Who thinks it's going to barf? Yeah? Yep. Okay. This thing is very fun that we're going to look at right now. We're going to, I'm going to exit out of the REPL here. Let's see if we have this in here. We do. Just in case anyone's curious, this subl is like a shorthand that I have in my, that's like predefined for me so that it'll open it up in Sublime Text. So don't think this is like some magical thing that you should know how to do. It's just something that I have. Yeah. Into an integer? Let's see. Like if I just give it, let's see. Like this? Just A. Or in quotes. Quotes or no quotes? With quotes. This is what we just tried to do with Melanie. Right? It says that it can't do that. So if you give it a string that is not a number, it says no. If you give it, because it can't make that into an integer, you know. Okay. Okay. I love this thing just because it's a lot of fun. So Python has this thing called input. It's a function, and what it does is when you call input on the and you call this file on the command line. When we run this program, it's going to prompt you here. It's going to say, "What's your name, little buddy?" Because that's how everyone talks. And then it's going to pause and wait for input from the user at the command line. And now we're going to take this variable that we've assigned with that input, and here we're going to print it out using our fancy string. So if we, how are we going to run this? Who remembers command line, how to run a program in the command line? Python 3, how do we do it in Windows? Very good. Just uses Python? Are you using like Anaconda or Anaconda, who else is using Anaconda? A handful of you? Yeah. Anaconda is kind of interesting because it's very featureful, and there's a few little surprises in there. I believe what's happening is that Anaconda kind of creates its own little environment that allows you to operate within that environment. So it's not touching your operating system quite the same way. Okay, so here we go. Did everyone see that? What's your name, little buddy? Melanie. Hi there, Melanie. It just prints it out. It's very fun. The one thing that I don't like about this as it is it's kind of ugly that when I start typing, there's like no space there. And if I give it a space, then there's like extra space, right? And the reason this is happening is that remember when we were trying to like concatenate those two strings, right? What did we need to do to keep them from just being smashed together? Space. Why? It's because Python is very literal. Like it does exactly what you tell it. So if you give it a space, it'll print out the space. If you don't, it won't. Oop. Now that looks pretty. Yay! Nice. Okay. So we're going to try to do a little bit more with that. So last time we had one variable name, but we can do more. I mean, we can do this till the cows come home. There's no limit. As long as we give it a new variable name for every input, then we can just go to town. So this is interesting. I probably should have named this something else. Okay, so when we run this, what's the first number we would like to have? Okay, someone pick a number. 3. Next. 42. Ruh-roh. I mean, I don't know. I'm not good at math, but that doesn't feel right to me. Why is this happening to us? What have we done? Because they're a string. Why? Because the input method, and why do you know this? That's correct. The input method, when you reply to this, it just takes whatever you give it, and it's like, this is a string now. The end. Like, there's no option for it to be anything other than a string. So then from what we know with this plus operator and concatenation, it's just going to take those and go like, meh. And so that's what we get. We get is math that makes absolutely 0 sense. So how do we fix this? Int? Okay, where? On which line? Okay. Closing here? Okay. We've got a yes and a no. We're going with yes first. And then this too? Yeah. Okay. So we did 3 and 42, I think, which is not 342. 45. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. We're amazing. Everything's going to be fine. And one thing we could have done, if your mind didn't go straight to the int, like if you were like, I don't know why it's doing that, if we didn't know that input grabs it as a string, then one thing we could have done just for troubleshooting, I don't know if this is going to work actually. Oh, that's what I was going to do. So I'm going to comment this out by putting that hash at the beginning. And then I'm just going to print out the type of number 1 and the type of number 2. So then you would be like, oh, I see. You know, like I was saying before, that sometimes checking the type of something can help you when you're troubleshooting. Another thing we could have done here . Is this, and how is this input or this output going to be different? What is it going to give us? Yep. I did want to check out, I think I heard a suggestion that we would do it this way. Let's just see what it does. So it takes the things, right? It takes our input, which are strings. It concatenates them first, and then it makes them afloat. There's one other way that we could handle this. So we did the conversion here. We could also put it here. We could do this nested function situation. So right when we assign the variable, we're going to convert it to an int, and that works as well. So that's, just kind of personal preference. It may be more readable to do it on that line where we add it together. Nested functions don't always feel like the most readable thing to me. But that's, up to you. Okay. So Python, like other languages, also has conditionals, right? Where we're going to do something under one condition. Like when it's my magical world, the magical number is 3. But if we're in Walmart, it's 5. So there are lots of different ways that we can do this, right? Lots of different decisions that will need to be made as you go through your programming. So Python can handle that too. And here's a couple of ways that it does it. So first we have Booleans, which is just true or false. True or false? Yes. Is 0 equal to 1? Well, again, I'm not great at math, but they're not even the same shape. Like, certainly they're not the same thing. So it's false. That's true, because they're the same shape, obviously. And then we have this also. Is this seen in other languages also? What languages have this? Does anyone know? Handful. Like the same exact syntax? Yeah. So it just means not equal instead of extremely equal, which is like if you've never come to programming before, you're like, well, that's obviously what that means. It's super equal. It's not equal. So we have those Booleans. And it's important to note that we're using equal to equal instead of equal, right? One equal is that we're assigning it to a variable. Equals equals is a test, One equals is a statement that we're saying. We're telling Python, here's what's happening. Equals equals is like a question. Is this what's going on? Okay, there's some other comparisons, like the, third grade math type of stuff. Is 1 greater than 0 because the alligator's eating it? Did anyone else learn it that way? Yeah. It wants the big one because it's a hungry alligator. Anyway, yes. And then we have greater than or equal to. False. False. True. This is pretty much what we expect, right? So in that last one, we're comparing a float, right, and an int, and that works out just fine. This one's fun. What do you think is going to happen here? Who thinks it's going to barf? Quite a few. Who thinks A is greater than B, or is less than B? This is a true situation. A is less than B. We have a change of mind now that we're thinking of it that way, because we have seen A as an inferior letter to B, which is the situation, right? Anyone else think along those lines, except for maybe that A is before B? So maybe we're thinking like an index sort of situation? Or an ASCII? It's true. It's an inferior letter. No, it is askabetical, which is slightly different. Like the definition of that is a little bit outside the scope. If you don't know about ASCII so much, you can look it up later when you're bored. But in most contexts for Python and that we're going to look at in class today, it's alphabetical, essentially. So is A equal to A? It is. And it's less than B. this is one case where the askabetical situation comes in a little bit. Is little a equal to big A? Yes. No. My daughter in kindergarten has to know this. It's critical. You just write big A's everywhere. They're very strict about it, actually. It's kind of weird. Anyway, yes, no, that's false. What about this one? That's false. An apple is greater than. And why is this? It evaluates A, right? And it's equal. So then it moves on to the next one. Python needs to figure out, like, there has to be some reason why I'm comparing these things. So then it moves on to P and N. And P, alphabetically, is, or askabetically. Does that make sense? Who is that, like, who's, like, completely confused? Anyone who's angry at the alphabet at this point? No? Anyone? Okay. That's good. I can't do anything about alphabet anger. Okay. So what about this one? I love the moment. This is like me all day long at work. Like, something. It's, what is it? Like when you have to like take the little pieces that you know and smash them together. It's true. It is true. So even though Z is later in the alphabet than A, capital Z and all the capital letters are going to come before lowercase letters. Okay, so this is just interesting. It's like something to just to think about. A is greater than 3.
If we put small a less than capital A.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I might have had that incorrectly. So it comes. It's false. So capital letters rank greater than yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's look at the in and not in operators. Is H in hello? It is. I've never realized how helpful like programming would be to a kindergartner. So X is not in hello. And we can use not in the same way. Whoop. There we go. So, and then one thing that I want to mention, we're not going to go into it very deeply, but there's another comparison is, and 0 is 0. So the only reason why I want to mention it here is because is sounds a lot like equals equals, like if you try to think it out logically, right? Is it this? Yes, it is. Obviously, the behavior is exactly the same as if we did this. But the difference between the two is between identity and value. So identity is what is does. Is this pointing to the exact same object? 0 is 0. Correct. Is it the same in value? Yes, it is the same in value. That's what equals equals is looking at value. So, and there are circumstances where this will trip you up. What I really want to mention right now, just for the sake of the scope of this class, is that usually if you see is, you're actually going to want equals equals. And you got to be careful about using those because their behavior can do something unexpected. But it's something that you should know exists. We can look at it later. I tried to find like a good example, but we can certainly talk about that another time. I couldn't find anything that felt like easily digestible. Okay, if statements. This is another way of conditionals, right? So we can check if things are equal. And now we can say, well, if this is the case, so our year is 1999. If the year is equal to 1999, we should print out it's 1999. So we should party a lot because we take our advice from Prince. If you don't get that cultural reference, we can talk about it later. It's 1999, so we should party a lot. So you'll notice here that I had to indent here. Python is very fussy about spaces, about indentation, so it's important that when we do that, when we start an if statement, we have to indent. Whoop. Sorry. See what happens? There we go. So when I tried to just do this is like when you spill coffee on yourself in the morning and then you're like, you get stuck in traffic and then a squirrel eats your toe. Like once it starts, you can't stop it. So let's hope the rest of the class isn't like this. Okay, so if I do this, then it's going to give me an indentation error. Because every time we start one of these conditionals, then it's going to want us to indent it because it knows that we're done talking about that conditional when it's then outdented. So we can also hold on a second. Okay. We can set our year to 2019. And we'll start off the same way. And then we can do an else. Does everyone remember, like, I don't know what the ages in the room are comparatively, but like 1999 was like such a fun year because it was so crazy. I had friends that were like stockpiling food and stuff, like that's a real thing that happened. Like it was great. I wish we could create that again where everyone's like, I literally don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. It could be fine, or we're going to be glad that we have corn. Like it's going to be one of the two. Okay. So our year is 2019. If the year is 1999, which we know it isn't, we wanted to print this. Otherwise, so this is like for any other circumstance, it's going to print out the other thing. Okay. Exercise break. We're going to do time to play, more script exercises. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. So there's quite a few things in here. I'm going to give you, this is good. I'm going to give you 30 minutes on this. This is like, we're getting real serious now. So your empty Python files will be in there. We're going to do the same thing where we open them up, edit them, save them off, and try to run them. See if we can get it to do what I'm asking of you in the exercises. So there's quite a few in here. And the first thing, the first exercise is about randomness. Try to get that one locked into your head before you move on to the others, okay? And if you have a question, no one will help you because you have no way of communicating that you need help. Like it would be great if you had a piece of paper that you could put on your computer to get help. Just dry there. I got 2 smiles. I'm totally winning right now. If you get stuck, we will help you if you put up a red sticky. So that's that. Red sticky away. Like, don't get frustrated on something. Like, if you need help, get it right away. Let's keep you moving. Okay? Any questions? Awesome. Good luck. 30 minutes. to mention one thing, a question that's been asked a couple of times, that we can do if and then if we want to check for another exact condition, we can say elif. And we can say and then we can add our else. So it's going to check to see if the year is 1999. Now instead of just saying like else in every other condition, do this, we use elif so we can check for another very specific condition. Okay, so remember earlier when I was like, we're going to take a break and it's going to be 30 minutes and you're going to do this stuff? That was false. I just checked a conditional and it was false. Well, thank you. Oh, goodness. So we actually have less time than I thought. So I want to do a couple of things. And this website is going to be up. So if you didn't get to something, like, do it later. And I'm hanging out until, like, through Monday. So if you see me and you want to ask questions, like, we can sit down and nerd out together. Like, that's totally fine. So I'm also Hello Melanie C on Twitter. You're welcome to hit me up as much as you like there. So don't worry. But I do want to get through a couple, two things. So remember when I said that we were going to meditate? We're going to do that right now. So there's a section on SuperPython Party called You Are Worthy of Love and Belonging. And I have to tell you what happened. Remember, okay, so I made this thing called 5UP. It sends you 5 happy texts a day, or just one. There's a setting. So I love it, because apparently I think I'm really cool. But it's fun. They're good, like, encouraging little texts, right? So, and in this section that I want to talk about right now, I want to talk about Brené Brown. She's a shame researcher. Who has seen her TED Talk or heard of her? Anyone? 1, 2, 3, 4. Hand. Good. So exciting for the rest of you. Like, so she has an amazing TED Talk. I linked to it in the curriculum here. And she writes a lot about shame and vulnerability, and how when we decide to be vulnerable, that's where we start to grow. Like, that's where we make connection. And that's where that connection gives us love and support that humans need. Like, this is a need that we have, right? And I was considering, like, our time is short, and I didn't know. And I swear to you, like, this just happened just a little bit ago. What I got on my phone from 5UP is a quote from Brené Brown. Oh my gosh, like, it's so awesome. So the quote that I have in 5UP is, "You are imperfect, you are wired for struggle, but you are worthy of love and belonging." This is actually a really deeply held belief of mine, that we are all here in every shape and form, and we all have our yucky stuff, and we're all going to screw up, and some of us are going to feel sad about the work that we did today, and some of us are going to feel happy. You're going to go through the conference, and you might feel small or big at different times, and none of it matters. Like, none of it influences the straight fact that you are worthy of love and belonging. It's just one of my favorite things. So, we talked about meditation. And so what I want you to do is practice breathing with your stomach. We're going to do 2 minutes. It's just 2 minutes. So breathe in and out through your stomach. I'm going to play a little app that I have called Breathing Zone. And it's going to have a tone for breathing in and a tone for breathing out. And if you would like to add on to that, paying attention to your breath, thinking, like, letting your mind fill with the fact that you are worthy of love and belonging, that you are an amazing thing that happened, you beautiful human, you're welcome to. Also, if you just want to stare at the floor, you're welcome to do that as well. But I really encourage you to try it. Try it once. So we're going to do that. You all are brilliant for doing that with me. Thank you. Okay. Goodness. So in the rest of the workshop, we have lists and then for loops. I want to mention a little bit, a few people have been talking about for loops. So you'll see examples of that, and I encourage you to look at that later. But some people mentioned while loops, so while this condition is true, okay, and for loops, so for every item that's here, or, something like this. So I do want to mention lists. Okay. So we have this list here. We looked at this in one of the other exercises. There was a list already there for you. And to define a list, all we need are these little brackets on the end. And you can fill it with whatever you want. You can fill it with a string. So we have bracket, comma, next thing, comma, next thing, comma, right? So you can fill it with whatever you want. We can put numbers in there. We can put integers in there. We can put strings in there. You can even put other lists in there. You can put variables in there, right? So you can really shove anything you want as long as it's separated with a comma. And the way that lists work is they're ordered, which means that we can say, I want the 0th item of that list, or I want the first item in that list, or the 1th. I always get confused with how to talk about indexes. So, but if we say the brackets here, it's going to pull that very first thing, right? So this is how we can access things from a list. It is ordered, and we can use the index. We can also use a slice, like this, with the syntax of having a colon in the middle, and that's going to get up to, but not including 4. So there's a couple little things that you can do with lists. And we also did earlier, remember we, used the random module. And that'll just pick something at random. So I wanted to show you those two little things. And we are unfortunately out of time. Is that right, Trey? Yeah? 12:20, right? That's when we're supposed to close it up. So again, the lists and loops are in there. Please go through it. There are lots of exercises that you probably didn't get to today. Please keep working through them. Find me. Let's have fun. I'm so, so crazy grateful that you all came to this tutorial and that we got to hang out for a few hours together. It's such a joyful experience for me. I hope it was for you. I will put the link out for feedback on the website, so you'll get a little email or a notice about that. One last thing. I'm going to host an open space on meditation. So if you were freaking in love with that 2 minutes, then I encourage you to come out, and we're just going to go through a couple of meditations together because it's good and fun. That is it, I think. Thank you, thank you, thank you.